Well, hey everyone, this is Chris DiFiorio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, who's been creating espresso machines by hand in Florence since 1927, and for almost 100 years. La Marzocco has been the foundational espresso machine for the coffee industry because they base their company on serving retail professionals like you through beauty, dependability, performance, and innovation. And one great example of this would be something like the KB90 espresso machine. With the straight-in locking portafilter technology, you've got scales in the drip tray for accuracy of your extractions, and auto flush in the group heads to help with the cleanliness of your machine and better workflow. That's just one of many examples of machines that La Marzocco has made that fit your needs exactly. Check them out over at lamarzocousa.com to see what I'm talking about. And if you are interested in having them help you select the right piece of equipment for your coffee bar, all you need to do to reach out to them is email info@lamarzocousa.com, and one of their salespeople will be happy to assist you. All throughout my career, it's always been a joy to work on a La Marzocco espresso machine. I wish that for you and your staff as well. Again, check them out over at lamarzocousa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Espressly, who is creating custom branded mobile apps for your coffee bar. This is the thing, if you have a custom branded mobile app, you're not just a dot on a map. That phone that your app lives on, that's your customer. And when they need coffee, they don't need to go searching. They just go right to your app and they get the latte, they get the coffee, they get the tea. It's all right there. And it kind of looks like your brand because it's branded. It's the feel of your cafe in the palm of their hand. And it's a no-risk model when you work with Espressly. There's no setup or development fees. You get a drive-through payment scanner, receipt and label printing capabilities. All of the data is stored in the app, and it integrates with some of the world's best payment processing systems, including Square. I think working with Espressly is a great option. Go and check them out and have them get started on your app today over at espressly.co. That's espressly.co. Okay, everybody. Well, today I wanted to talk about something that comes up occasionally when we talk about a coffee bar that has grown to the point where you as the owner are wanting to delegate. You're wanting to step away from the daily activities and delegate leadership to somebody in your pool of baristas, okay? However, there is a problem. Nobody wants to do it, or nobody on your staff is really qualified to do it simply because they're not available, they're new, they have demonstrated that leadership is not exactly their strong suit, which means that you're thinking about hiring a manager from outside, or just hoping that you can hire a barista who you'll eventually train up as a manager, which takes a very long time to do if it happens at all. And so there's always two things going on when it comes to management. We're talking about either promoting from within or hiring from outside. People generally don't like the idea of hiring from outside because they think it's we have to teach them our culture and it's going to be too much work and it's not going to go well with the baristas because they might not respect this individual. And there's some validity to some of those concerns. Ideally, yes, you want to promote from within, but the ideal is not always available for all cafes. And in some cases, you do need to hire from outside if you are to grow the business. Now, you can do this with respect to what you have built and with respect to the people that currently work there. But I will say this, there's a limit to how much you need to involve or weigh the opinion of current staff on the selection of management that in all likelihood will outlive, in terms of their time working in your business, those baristas. I always tell my clients, look, we're trying to build something that not only is it going to benefit the people here that work now, but really think 5 years in the future. You're probably not going to have the same pool of people working for you. And what kind of environment do you want them to be working in then? What kind of a leadership structure, if this business continues to grow, do you need to have in place in order to see it running well? Now let's take steps backwards and say, what would have had to have been true? What would we have had to have done over the course of these last 5 years in order for that to be true? And now you start to get the idea that we need to serve not just the customer and the barista and staff of today, but we are also responsible for serving those groups of people that exist in some future reality. That is part of the responsibility of operating a space. And so there's a couple of things that you could do to really make hiring from the outside. And before we talk about that, I think it's worth noting that a lot of times the reason we don't think we can hire from inside our current pool of employees is because we've mismanaged their development as professionals. And we've kept them at a low level, not necessarily on purpose, but we haven't developed them as professionals. So we don't really have a deep bench of talent. We haven't really hired people in a way that, maybe hires them with the idea that everybody who I bring on as a barista could be a manager. That's a great way to think about it. Then it would be less likely that you would be looking for outside help in managing the coffee shop, bringing that talent in, because you've already been developing that talent from within. Now, but let's just say that for whatever reason, this is what you have to do. Okay. Here's a couple of things that you should bear in mind. One, you need to know your values. What are the core values, the framework of operation that everybody uses to serve guests, to serve each other, to make great coffee, to care for the space, all of that stuff. And you can tap into the knowledge of your staff to help you build that specific value statement or document or whatever, so that they are a part of this process of codifying for you this values system that will be used to vet people that are going to apply for this job of management from the outside. And what this does is it addresses the idea that they're not going to be a fit for our culture. They will be a fit for your culture if you know what your culture is. Your culture is how we are, why we do what we do on a regular basis. That is our identity as professionals. And once you get that down, you can more easily see it in other people and use it as a screening process for people who apply. The next thing to bear in mind if you're hiring a manager from outside is this person needs to be onboarded in such a way that puts them in the learning position before you put them in the authority position. The authority position and somebody who comes in and, wants to just take charge and do all sorts of things different, that's a recipe for disaster. I will say that because I've done it, first of all, did not turn out well. I've seen it done and also did not turn out well. And because I've seen the opposite, which is we start with a learning disposition, which I've also done, and it worked much better. You have to create an onboarding process for this manager that is structured, that is all about learning in the beginning, becoming fluent in what's happening on the bar and in the core responsibilities that don't need creativity necessarily. They just need execution. And once this person becomes saturated and competent in those things that are, and they've built trust within the business, within the staff, now you can start to allow them to do more leader-like things like one-on-ones, really taking charge of the schedule, creating change in systems and standards. This has to be a process that is monitored by you, and eventually they will become autonomous. But too often what we want to do is we hire a manager. We say, just go for it. We trust you. You have a lot of experience. Go ahead and do what you will. And, come knock on my door when you've got a brand new, better cafe to show me. And it just doesn't work like that. If you want to listen to an episode more about that, you can listen to Leadership Abandonment Syndrome. That'll be in the show notes. So go ahead after this shift break, you can listen to Leadership Abandonment Syndrome. I think that'll speak a lot to that point. But that is a major part of successfully bringing in talent from the outside. Now, it goes without saying that the person who you are going to select for a management position is going to want to also learn themselves. They're not going to be somebody who assumes that they're going to be effective And it would be a bad sign if in the interview process they didn't show any signs of curiosity or humility. No matter what their pedigree is or competition title, and they have maybe managed 15 amazing coffee shops in their career. The fact of the matter is, your coffee shop is unique. There are going to be some things that just translate no matter what environment you're in, but it's a sign of arrogance and I would say eventual dereliction of duty of a manager to assume that their past experiences allow them to not lead with curiosity and learning and earning respect, earning trust, that kind of thing. And when you work together with somebody who has that kind of humble confidence and that learning spirit and the desire to lead well through knowledge developed over relationships, then I think you probably are more likely to have a winner on your hands. So, in review, one, you have the necessity to know what your culture is in a very practical way. I'm not talking about what your aspirations are, like we want to change the world and that's our culture. That's not your culture. That's your mission statement, and it's something you put on a plaque and hang in your laundry room. Okay. Culture is more practical. Culture is, do you always serve drinks filled up all the way? Do you clean all of the bathroom? How do you speak to one another? How do you speak to customers? How do you show up in a practical way? This is what you need to know about your bar. And that's what you need to look for in an individual who's going to be leading people in these things, right? That'll help you select the right person. Second of all, you need to make sure this person, if you do hire them, is somebody that is going to be onboarded in a mindful way, in a way that puts them in the learning position first and gradually allows them to build trust, take on more of an authoritative role, because that's what past guest on the show, Jonathan Raymond, calls good authority. Another episode you can listen to after today's shift break. There's more that can be said here, of course, about hiring managers from outside. I do think that the opinion of your baristas now about that individual does matter, but take into consideration all the things that I just mentioned. It all comes together to create more likelihood for success. And again, I want to reiterate, it may not be necessary to hire from the outside in the future if you start taking the first step to develop leaders in your business right now. Hire every staff member as if they are a potential manager, and you will have more available options to choose from should the time come, not just for a manager to come in for your store now, but what if you expand to another location and you need a manager for that store? Now you've got a deeper bench of talent to draw from because that was cultivated like that from the beginning. So I hope that this was helpful, everybody. As always, I am so excited that you chose to spend time with me today. Go ahead and follow us on Instagram. If you love the show, go on Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. And don't forget to subscribe and share these episodes. Again, thank you so much, and I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from Keys to the Shop.